Let's talk about the best time to get citizenship by investment. A lot of new entrepreneurs and high earners who are seeing their incomes going up, a lot of investors who are seeing their net worths going up have asked me, how do I know when I have enough money, when citizenship by investment makes sense for me? I'm going to give you my thoughts on that issue right now. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson here at Nomad Capitalist. Our team of over 36 people worldwide, our network of global experts, and yours truly help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So let's talk about the best time to get citizenship by investment. Now, I've said for years, I think anyone who is successful, anyone who has ambition, who has a high income, a high net worth, who's an investor in something like cryptocurrency that is a topic for regulation, needs a second passport. Doesn't mean everyone needs one in 6 months. I think Americans who are successful, especially given that the U.S. has global taxation of its citizens, need to make it a priority. But I also think other countries are going to start lowering the boom on their citizens. But the question is, when does a streamlined citizenship by investment program, such as that in the Caribbean, where you have St. Lucia or Dominica, with a $100,000 donation plus the fees, you get a passport in a number of months. Or Antigua, St. Kitts, Grenada, a little bit more expensive, perhaps more friendly for families, but also a passport in a matter of months. And so, people will come to me and say, Andrew, I've got $1 million. Do I need citizenship by investment? I understand a second passport will help me. Maybe I'm an American. I'm getting close to the numbers where I have to make a choice. Do I want to be an American or not? Maybe I just want an insurance policy. I'll have other people come to me say, if I make $250,000 a year, is that enough? Here's how I look at it. Number one, there's an ROI potentially on citizenship. If you can get a citizenship and you can change your status, and that change in status means that you can pay a lot less in tax, that's a pretty easy calculation, right? So if I'm making $500,000 a year, my tax bill is $200,000. If by getting a second passport and then divorcing my current country, I can save $180,000, well, that's a pretty good return on investment. If I can put out $100 and some thousand and get it back in less than a year, by most metrics, that's pretty good. Considering that every year, considering the business keeps going, I'm going to save that $180. And from my perspective, you're probably going to save more every year because the freedom of not wasting so much of your money, you're going to feel more comfortable and you're going to go on to make more and more money. So from that perspective, it's pretty simple to calculate a plan A. Get a second passport, take another action, save money. That ROI is pretty easily calculated. And you just look out over whatever period of time makes sense to you, 5 years, 10 years. If you're going to sell your business in 10 years, how much money can I save in 10 years on the income side? How much money can I save on the capital gains event in the future, by getting the second passport now and making it my plan A. So that's a pretty easy ROI calculation. And by those numbers, someone who's investing in cryptocurrency, for example, or someone who's got a very fast-growing business or a very fast-growing income. I've had folks who are consultants where they're going from, $100,000 a couple years ago to $1 million a year now. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and say the ROI makes sense, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable. Better a year too early than a day too late. Right? I've had so many cryptocurrency investors who are coming to me right at that $2 million mark where leaving the U.S. gets really unpleasant, and they're at $1.92 million looking to get a second passport. What they should have seen is if they were so bullish on cryptocurrency at $800,000 in net worth, they should have just gone out and bitten the bullet and just done it at that point. Okay. Now let's look at it from a Plan B perspective, from an insurance perspective. I'm not sure what I want to use the second passport for. I'm not leaving my country for good quite yet, but I want to have that insurance policy. And so then I treat it like any other insurance policy. What is the value of insurance, right? A 16-year-old driver costs more to insure than a 50-year-old driver. And so what is the value of insurance to you? If you have $1 million net worth and you think your country might come and institute a pretty nasty wealth tax, then it's going to be worth more to you to get a second citizenship by investment rather than taking a slower path through a paper residence or moving to another country or tracking down your long-lost Hungarian grandparents. And so again, it's kind of an ROI perspective, but with the addition of an actuarial component where you figure out what is my perceived risk that a certain taxation event or a certain travel restriction event is going to happen. So let's take two equal people with $1 million. One is an American with $1 million. One is a Chinese citizen with $1 million. If you're doing business in the world that requires business travel, the Chinese citizen is going to waste a lot more of his valuable time waiting around for visas, possibly being rejected for visas, by not having that second citizenship. Whereas an American, even though the quality of the passport during the pandemic has gone down dramatically, in a normal situation, a US passport or any other Western passport, you can go pretty much wherever you want, which is why you've always seen most people in this industry catering to China, to Russia and Central Asia, to the Middle East, where even though they're wealthy, their passport's not generally that great in most countries. And so, it's a different perspective. It's not a matter of wealth because both people have $1 million, but one person has a much greater opportunity cost because every time they want to go to Europe, they've got to go and waste time and get a visa and gather documents, and it costs money, and it's counterproductive. And they're missing on opportunities because they can't just, go on the fly. And so the Chinese person has a higher need to do it. Now, on the other hand, the American person, in my opinion, and really most Westerners, aren't adequately baking in the risk that their country is going to tax them at a higher level, introduce new taxes, potentially have retroactive taxes. And so, for me, I would say when you get to the seven-figure net worth level, you should be seriously looking at if you are a citizen of a Western country. You've got a target on your back now. We've seen in some countries, and even in some U.S. states, $250,000 is a lot of money. And so $1 million, to most people, the idea of millionaire is still unfathomable, and it makes you the evil rich, and they're going to come after you. And so at $1 million, I would start taking it seriously, particularly if my net worth was growing quickly. Now, if I'm just sitting at $1 million and I'm going to stay at $1 million, then, all right, even if I'm in the UK and they slap a 5% one-time wealth tax on me, I'll take that chance, perhaps overspending, 2 or 3 times that on a passport, if I think that's the only thing they're going to do to me. So you have to kind of figure out, what I'll do just to help myself stay sane is I'll keep a list of all potential negative events that are coming up, and I'll assign percentages to them. And then I'll figure out what would be the cost of that happening, right? So, what's whatever event you think is coming up. I think there's a 10% chance that my $1 million will have a $50,000 tax applied to it. Okay, so that on an actuarial basis costs $5,000. I'm probably not running out and spending a six-figure sum for $5,000. But if you say, long term, my country's going to raise taxes, they're going to double the capital gains tax rate, they're going to make it more difficult for me to leave the country, my net worth is approaching the number where I'm going to have to pay a substantial exit tax, then I would start looking at saying, all right, let's say you've got $1.5 million in crypto as an American, and in a year you're going to have $3 million in crypto. Well, right now you've got a pretty clean path to exit the U.S., whereas at $3 million, depending on your basis, you might have, if Joe Biden has his way, a $1 million plus tax event. So if you're pretty serious about going from $1.5 to $3 million, and you think that's an 80% chance, for example, and you look at 80% chance that, you'll have this tax event, and there's a 50% chance it'll be at 39.6% versus 23.8%. You can do all the complicated math, but potentially you've got a $400,000 or $500,000 actuarial cost. That's probably worth insuring, and it's probably not worth waiting around. And I think what far too many people do is they delay, where they say, well, when I need it, I'll get it. But it doesn't happen overnight. You don't just snap your fingers and the passport arrives tomorrow. It will take a matter of months. And so again, if you're in something volatile where income and or net worth is rapidly changing, and you're in a volatile country where they're very quickly trying to pass new taxes that you may not have a lot of time to react to, that cost has to be baked in. Again, I think you should follow the numbers. It's the same thing that I do with my time. I look at what's the value of my time. I take my annual income divided by 2,000 hours. That's the price of my time. And I try to be very honest. If I can hire someone for less, or if I can outsource it for less, I do. If, I can spend 3 minutes and save $1,000, I'll just do that. I'm not going to outsource that. I think in the same way, being perfectly honest about the actuarial risks and those associated costs will help you determine whether you need a second passport. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I got $500,000, I can't justify spending $100,000 because the opportunity cost is far too high, but I will go and spend, 10 grand in legal fees in some country to set up a residence permit, and then I can go and visit every once in a while and get my passport in 3 years. And if the situation changes and you get to $1 million faster than you thought, then you can go back and revisit it. So the short answer is, for most people, if I'm in the 7-figure net worth category, I'm going to start to take a look at citizenship by investment. Obviously, I work with folks who have hundreds of millions of dollars who don't think they need any second passport, and that's fine. If they've priced in the risks and they're willing to accept those risks, that's fine. There's also cases where, again, if you're in crypto and you have 300 grand in altcoins, it might be worth at least starting the application now, paying the due diligence fees now, paying the legal fees now, and then making a decision 6 months from now when you get approved about actually making the donation. Because perhaps that 300,000 in 6 months goes to 1.5 million, and now you're on a track. So you can always start the process before you quite have the amount of money, if you know that you're accumulating the money before you get approved, because the donation is generally paid after you're approved. So I think that the more velocity your income and your wealth has, the more important it is. I would say $1 million, or soon to be $1 million, is a good starting point. I would also say, depending on what kind of business you're in, if you're an American and you're doing day trading, if you're doing cryptocurrency trading, if you have passive income, if I'm making a couple $100,000 a year, I'm willing to take a 1-year ROI on potentially eliminating all the taxes that I'm paying on those trades. So yeah, $250,000, $300,000 a year for some people. Whereas, again, if I'm sitting in the UK and I'm just worried that they might make my taxes worse, then I'm probably going to be a 7-figure income earner. So there's no, exact answer, right? We work here with people who have 7- and 8-figure incomes and net worths and higher, because those are folks that I believe need this. Sometimes we determine they don't need citizenship by investment, but I hope that gives you at least an insight into the formula and the thought pattern that I'm using. You're seeing so many people who are making money quickly these days out of nowhere. I think those are the people with the biggest issues. Everyone else who just has high income and high net worth, I think, should get around to it quickly as well, but it's worth a little bit more of analyzing the exact risks to determine whether you need it in 6 months or 3 years. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.